Hi, I'm Kirk Chug.
And I'm Corey Moore.
We are the Gentleman Project Podcast. We help you turn the time you have with your kids into time well spent.
Yep, Kirk and I talked a lot about how to be better dads and to raise gentlemen, and we realized that more people wanted to be inspired and talk about that, and thus this Gentleman Project Podcast.
We had lots of conversations with each other and with our friends, and what we decided to do was to record some of these conversations and bring them to you in a podcast. We hope you enjoy.
Today we have Rob Corcoran with us. Rob is a single dad who has figured it out and has some great lessons for us.
Yeah, we hope you enjoy the podcast today. For your weekly dose of inspiration and fatherhood, please like and follow the Gentleman Project Podcast and tell your friends about it. Enjoy the show.
We are with Mr. Rob Corcoran, the man, the myth, the legend himself. Rob, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm pumped.
We're going to have a great conversation with Rob today. Rob, tell us a little bit about you, your business, and your boys.
Oh, boy. Well, I own a corporate relocation company called Influence Relocation. We basically move and relocate corporate executives around the country. It's a fun little niche I got into about 10 years ago. And more importantly than that, I've got two amazing kids. Canyon is 13 and Crew is 11, and they are my life and my passion. We have a blast together, and can't wait for you guys to learn more about them.
Yeah, I've seen all the stuff that you do with them, Rob, and it looks to me like you've somewhat got an idea of how to master this integration of a busy lifestyle with like taking your boys along, like integrating them into your life. What have you been doing lately? Like what's worked very recently for you with your, like, that was a dad success?
Oh, man. I would say, well, I'm sitting here with a sprained ankle. I'd say a dad success is playing basketball with my kids this weekend, and I tried to juke my little guy, and it didn't go well, man. He put me on the floor, and now I'm on crutches. So I would say that was a proud dad moment right there. There's no doubt. The kids can play ball now. It's a blast.
So you sprained your ankle. You've got a trip coming up next week to go golf.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I'm going with Corey, and I about died when I was on the floor, and both my kids are avid golfers. So they're like, Dad, are you going to be able to go on the trip? I'm like, boys, of course your dad's going on that trip.
So I've watched videos of you and your kids for probably like the last 6 or 7 years of them on the golf course with you. And you love golf, and you've taken the passion of golf and given it to your boys. What are some of those moments like on the course? Like what's so magic about golf and you and your boys?
I just actually got the chills. If you could see, you can see my arms right now. I cannot believe that I have golf as a passion of mine. And I always hoped, any father, whether you're in a hunting or golf or whatever your passion is, you hope that your children want to take part of that. But if they don't, that's their life, and life goes on. But I'm so blessed that both my kids have they're freaks about golf like their dad is. And there's a couple things that go along with it. Skiing's a big thing that we do, and golf. But the reason I love them so much for the kids is there's no phones. There's no video games. It's just 4 to 5 hours of time together, or with friends. So that's an important part of it. But just watching them grow. My oldest kid beat me for the first time in 9 holes straight up, legitimately. Like, that was an incredible experience. And he goes after me every time now, which is absolutely awesome. But I think it teaches them a lot, right? Golf is a game that teaches you. It's about you. There's no one else there to support you. It's all mental. It's about being honest. It's about integrity. And when you have a bad day, you get up and do it again. But at the end of the day, we all play for that one great shot that we might hit during that particular round. So it's just, I've been fortunate and blessed. We played golf in Grand Cayman. We played golf in Colorado. We played golf in California. And they cannot wait to. The big day for us is going to be Pebble Beach. And I keep telling them, once they can shoot in the mid-80s, we're going to Pebble Beach. And I think that's probably going to happen a little bit sooner than I anticipated, so I better start saving. But I can't even put it into words. I'll give you a quick little story. 2 Thanksgivings ago, I wasn't dating anyone. It was just the boys and I for Thanksgiving. I said, where do you want to go? We got 4 days. They're like, we're going to Las Vegas to go golfing. So we played 36 holes a day, but I'll tell you, as a father, it was the greatest Thanksgiving, yet the worst ever, because all we wanted at nighttime on Thanksgiving Day was a piece of pumpkin pie. Let me tell you, Those Las Vegas folk aren't big into Thanksgiving. We ended up having a box of Krispy Kreme donuts in our hotel for Thanksgiving. I'll never forget it. We still talk about it today.
That's a great fatherhood moment.
So I know, because I know you well, that when your son beat you, that was a love-hate thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you hate to lose. Even to your son, I'm sure.
Yeah, he didn't eat that night.
You talked about teaching them a little bit about the integrity and honesty via golf. Do you have conversations while you're playing golf about life lessons?
All the time. We especially as kids, your emotions are a little bit more erratic. Well, I think mine probably still are, and I'm 47. But you know what I'm talking about. You're going through puberty, you're growing up, and trying to hold those. The battle, to be honest with you, is between the two of them. They're so competitive together that I try to help manage those emotions. My little guy wants to beat the older one. Crew wants to beat Canyon nonstop, and I let him know, buddy, he's a foot taller than you. He's 40 pounds heavier than you. You're going to catch up. You're going to do fine. Well, we were out playing about a week and a half. It was about a month ago now. And he actually beat his brother in 9 holes, and he was so excited. So I've tried to teach them that I think the hardest part for kids is understanding that losing is okay. As we get older, everyone wants to win, but you don't get to feel the greatness of winning without losing. We wouldn't know the difference between the two if you didn't have one or the other throughout your entire life. So that's one of those things that I teach to them constantly. And it's because of their competitive spirits that we have that conversation pretty much every day. A matter of fact, going back to my sprained ankle, I had to stop the middle of the game because they're so competitive, knocking each other down, which is great. But there's a point where it gets a little too physical, and Dad has to jump in and have that conversation. So, but it's a good one to have.
So, Rob, we've received a couple of feedbacks, emails, text messages from people who have listened to some of the podcasts, and they say, are you going to have a dad on who's a single dad?
Thanks for picking me.
And I said, yeah, we actually have a guest scheduled to come on and talk about that. So yeah. I'd like to talk a little bit today about how you've managed being a single dad. If you're willing to talk about some of the things that you learned through divorce and how it's affected kids.
Absolutely. Happy to help.
And,
sure.
And so share some of those insights that you think some of those dads out there might want to hear that are in a situation similar to yours.
Yeah. Being a single dad, I don't want to say it's difficult. It's actually been easy. One thing I've learned from divorce, and you wish it never happened for you and your spouse and obviously your children. Mine have handled it very well, and I think that's a big part of that's because of the way that their moms handled it and I've handled it. I only live 1.5 miles away from my boys, so nothing in their life has really changed in that regard. They go to the same grocery store with mom as they go with dad. I've learned through divorce that that's actually a very important piece of kids feeling more comfortable and confident. But I will tell you one thing that's come about this is I spend more quality time with my boys being a divorced dad, and that's probably a sad thing to say, but it's true, than I did when I was married. I mean, when I'm with my boys, there's no dating. I have a girlfriend now, which we'll probably talk about here in a little bit, but there's no dating. There are no business trips. There's nothing. When I have my boys, it is the 4 of us, and we're having the greatest time that we possibly can have together. So I know it sounds crazy, but it's actually been a blessing that when I'm with them for 4 or 5 days, I'm with them 24 hours a day for 4 or 5 days straight. There are no interruptions. Once again, no business trips. There's no golf with the guys. Corey's called me multiple times. He can tell you, hey, can we all go and play Friday afternoon? Well, I'm sorry, I got to pick up the kids from school, and I wouldn't change that for the world. So nothing has interrupted that. I think that's probably been the biggest thing for me is the value that I have, on time. Friday afternoons, I don't work Friday afternoons when I have the kids. After school, we go out and we, now they're getting a little bit older. I'm dropping them off to friends' houses and so on and so forth. But 2 or 3 years ago, is we'd go to the golf course or go skiing. And we still do those things, but now their friends are more integrated into our daily routines, which is also a lot of fun.
So, Rob, I know you're close to your mom.
Uh-huh.
And we've talked about her a couple of times. Are there things that you learned from your mom that have helped you as a father, things that you go, oh man, my mom did these things and I'm doing those now?
Absolutely. My mom, Corey knows my mom, but 78 years old, and she's currently in Turkey, still working for the government. There's no quitting the lady. I was just texting her last night, Mom, how's Turkey? And, Oh my gosh, I learned lessons from my mom every day. As a matter of fact, my first job was when I was 11 years old. My mom and dad got me a lawnmower, and I've worked every day since. But to pinpoint your question, I want to say roughly 20 to 25 lawns. I'd have to mow a week at one point. And my mom was there every step of the way to help me. If I wanted to go out and play basketball with my buddies for 2 or 3 hours, she'd take over and mow the lawns for me. I look back and think, that's unbelievable. My mom just took over and went and mowed someone else's random lawn so that I could go out and play. There's accountability for me. I was there 90% of the time, but that 10% of the time, she didn't hesitate to jump in on a Saturday and go mow 3 lawns. And that sticks with me. I think about it all the time. So absolutely, without a doubt, my mom's passion for, commitment and hard work, I think has taken both my sister and I to where we are today. And I'm hoping to, obviously pass that on to my boys. I let them know that, our lifestyle, and we're very blessed to do the things that we're able to. And they don't just happen. They happen with a lot of work and a lot of dedication.
Yeah, I've had a lot of conversations with dads over the years, and I've asked the question, what's the one thing that your dad taught you? And I don't know if it's a good sign or a good thing, but the most common answer to that question was, my dad taught me hard work. Not that hard work is important, right, or that hard work leads to success. It was just hard work. And I have kind of come to translate that into, Dad wasn't around a whole lot. He was working a lot. And the lesson that I learned, or the major lesson that I learned, was that work is important, is really what I hear. And I know that you've been able to balance that work play with your boys quite well, and have been blessed to be able to do some of those things. My question for you today, I guess, would be, how are you teaching your boys not just hard work, but the value of hard work and what that will do for them in their futures to follow in the footsteps of great guys like their dad?
Yeah, I don't. I let them know it's not. It's easy in today's world, especially, get caught up in money. Right, our kids are on social media. They see music. They see musicians. They see athletes making hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, and it's enticing to a child. It's enticing to us as adults, right? But we get to an age where we realize, well, that's not really important. It's nice if we have it or we don't, but that's not the meaning of life by any stretch. So I have that conversation. I have let my kids know that I've seen some of the best grocery cart baggers that have the greatest personality and are the most passionate people you'll ever meet in your life. And I've, and you see the person when we walk up to the tee shop, passionate about checking us in and telling the boys to have a great time playing golf. The reason I share that is because I'm trying to let them know it is not about money. It's about making sure that you enjoy what you do every single day. I literally have a job. It's not a job to me. I just get up and I do it. No different than the two of you. You're very passionate about what you do. That is so much more important than money. Money will follow if that's what your goals are. But if it's getting up every day and absolutely loving what you do, that's not even a job. You're fortunate and you're blessed to collect a paycheck from it. But that is not what it's all about. It's truly about enjoying yourself. I can remember having a couple jobs. They were jobs when I was younger. Man, I'd go sit in the bathroom sometimes and put my head down thinking, what am I doing? How do I get out of this? This is horrible. And I don't want them to ever have that. And I told them, you should never have to worry about that. Now, there are times in life where things are difficult and you got to do whatever it takes to take care of your family or yourself at that given time. That's a different scenario. But when it comes to the opportunity to create a life for yourself, do whatever you want to do that makes you happy.
Rob, you're legitimately one of the most high energy, optimistic, passionate people I know.
Thank you.
How do you do that? And how do you teach your boys to be that kind of a person? I mean, you just attract people because you're that person. How do you do it? And how do you explain that to your boys, or do you just do it by example?
Well, thank you, first of all, but I think it's just in your DNA. I see a lot of me, and I see a lot of their mom and our boys, as we all do, obviously. But it's so funny you asked that. I just had the conversation with my little guy 2 nights ago. He is so driven to want to win, but it comes off negatively at his age. Does that make sense? And I pulled them both aside. They both have basketball tryouts this week. I pulled them both aside and I said, guys, it's not about you making the team. Your coach cares more about you trying and giving 110% than they ever will you putting the ball in the basket. So I think I've always been driven. I don't know why. It's just who I am. I can remember being a kid, no different than them. I always wanted to win. I think you either have it or you don't. But I think you also can not have it when you're not passionate about something, and you can have it when you're passionate about something. Does that make sense? Not very well said, but I think it's just built inside of you. Unfortunately for me, both of my kids have that same drive, maybe not to the extent that I do. I might be a little off center, but we'll see as they grow older. They're going to grow into their own little bodies a little bit more. But I don't know. I think it's just natural. It's who I am. I have the passion to have a lot of fun, and I have the passion to be successful, and that doesn't mean money. To me, my time with my kids is being successful. Period. End of story. And we do a lot of it.
Rob, talk to us about your dating life.
Ooh,
We're
baby.
getting straight into it.
All right, let's get there.
Tell us what it's like, how it's been an adjustment for you and for your boys. And I know she has kids too, right?
Yes, my girlfriend, yeah.
So, you've got some positive male mentorship opportunities there. Talk to us a little bit about how that's been an adjustment for your family and how you've managed that.
Yeah, so I've been divorced coming up in a few months on 4 years. And, it was, Corey knows a lot of, I say dating stories because that's what they are. They're like, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe what happened last night. I went to dinner and we didn't have a great conversation, right? I mean, those types of things happen on dates. And then there's other ones where they're absolutely magical. But no, I dated for 4 years. One thing that was important to me is not to introduce the kids to anyone until I was seriously dating. I had a lot of conversations with different people, moms and dads, about that. I've been, like I say, almost divorced 4 years. My kids have only met two people. One gal I dated for a little while, closer to when I was newly divorced, I guess, not right away. And then now the gal that I've been dating for 16 months, actually today. And that's been a whole, another story in regards to much more serious and fun and so on and so forth. So back to the time with my kids, I've never gone on a date when I had my boys. It's just it wasn't important to me. Dating's fun and what have you, but the kids are more important than that. They would ask questions, which I thought was interesting, but I wouldn't say much. A matter of fact, I can remember my little guy, the mischievous one, jumping on my phone one day. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm swiping left to right. I about died. I'm sweating right now telling you this because it was hilarious. He's like, no, I'm not kidding. It was absolutely hilarious. I'm like, get off my apps, kid. But no, the coolest part about it is when you do meet someone you want to be with. And that was awesome. Sarah's the first one that I had met that I'm like, this could be something. She's absolutely amazing. Like I say, we dated for 16 months, but I can remember, matter of fact, it was last October 4th, or the previous October 4th, that we did the introduction. And I remember driving over there because she has 4 kids. I have 2 kids. So all of a sudden we're the Brady Bunch. And I'll never forget driving over there. My little guy crew was very nervous. I mean, mom is mom, right? He doesn't want some other lady. It's really an important piece to this. We all hesitate. I'll tell you the story why we're driving over for a second, because we both told each other, if our kids don't connect, if we don't feel that connection, it's just you move on because that's the right thing to do. No matter how much we enjoy each other, it's a hug and a kiss, and it's been a pleasure. We'll remain friends, but it's not going to happen. We both agreed that was the case. Anyway, we're driving over, and I'm, being a dad, I'm looking in the back like, oh man, how's this going to go? And it was hilarious. My little guy crew walks in the door. He's all nervous. There's 4 older kids there, right? One is their age, and I'll share that story here in a minute. So they're a little nervous. My other guy, Canyon, though, is hilarious. He'd never met these people before. He walks in, he's like, hey, I'm here. When's the party? Like, he's been that way since the day they met. I'm like,
sounds like somebody I know.
Your kids sound just like you, Rob.
Oh my gosh, it was a riot. We still laugh about it today. But it has been the most, you could not have 2 families, and you always hope for this, but you never really think it's going to happen when you're out there dating. But you could not have put together 2 families where the kids get along incredibly well. Matter of fact, Sarah's youngest daughter, Sorrel, and my 2 boys, they're all the same age, legitimately the best friends on earth. We've had wonderful experiences together during this COVID thing. We've traveled in RVs. We've rented Rangers, UTVs. We actually, funny enough, Sarah and I were on a trip after they've only met for about 2 months. And I said, I'd already booked London. My kids are avid soccer players and wanted to go to professional, to see a real Premier League soccer. This is funny, soccer game. So I knew I had airline points because I travel a lot for business, but I knew there was no way on earth 2 months before Christmas that I was going to be able to get tickets for the three of us to go. So I said, he's like, what if you have enough points? I'm like, Canyon, I've only got a few 100,000 points. There's no way three of us are going to London on my points. I said, here's my phone. Go ahead, look it up. Holy cow. 10 minutes later, we booked trip to London. I'm not kidding. It was like 60,000 points a person. I'm like, how'd you do this? Anyway, long story short, a week or two later, I asked Sarah, I'm like, you want to go to London with us for Christmas? And we did. 8 of us went to London. We had the most we still talk about it today like it was yesterday. Everything went off without a hitch. We had the most extraordinary time spending 8 of us in London together that I don't even know if we'll ever top that experience. It was so wonderful. So the experience of dating, when I finally found that, that wonderful person to spend time with and with my kids, you can't even measure it. It's unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
So Rob, you've got like lots of positivity. You've got lots of positive experiences. You've shared some of those positive experiences with us today. Let's get real now. What's the one thing right now that is the biggest challenge for you as a father?
The biggest challenge I'd say right now is just they mature. They sometimes talk back to you. And for a while you're like, wait a minute, did you just say that to me? Like, who are you, little punk, right? Corey's eyes are lighting up like, yeah, I've seen that before. So that's a challenge. I think the way that I react to it, I've learned over just the last year. I used to get frustrated. I used to get literally upset at them. And now I might get a little upset, but I'm also, okay, back off. You are the same person. Remember some of those things that happened with you and your mom. So I've kind of backed off the gas pedal a little bit to maybe 70% is the way I look at it in my mind. Give them a little chance to breathe. They're just growing. You trust them. They're good kids. So that's one thing, but no different than any other parent. It's the fear of, I was golfing actually just a month or so ago. My oldest son, Canyon, has a friend. Talk about fun. We play match play together, Canyon and his buddy against me and crew. I mean, I couldn't have any more fun in my life. It sounds crazy, but it's like full-blown battles, man. Every weekend we're going at it together. But I was looking at the three of them on the green, and I'm thinking they're still innocent kids. They're 13 years old, 11 and 12 and 13. They're innocent. But gosh, you see drugs creep in, you see alcohol creep in, you see all those things. And I'm thinking, oh, I hope that doesn't happen to any of these kids. I think we as parents, Halloween the other night, see all these kids out. And we as parents can see, well, that one was kind of like me, or that one is kind of like my buddy. Oh man, I hope he doesn't go down the wrong path like my friend chose to. So we have those conversations a lot, but those are the biggest fears, no different than any other parent. But, and I think keeping that close relationship, I tell my kids all the time, you screw up, it's okay. Just come tell mom and dad about it. Both Shannon, my ex-wife, and I have those conversations. We're both very open and honest. We understand mistakes happen, but keep that open line of communication is key. So that's just without a doubt. That's my biggest fear. They're 13 going to 14, 15, and we know where it goes from there. So I feel like for those next 6, 7 years, if we can keep them in a straight line, they're going to be off and just fine. And I can't fathom either of them doing those things. But we all know people that have had kids that they couldn't fathom it either. So that's without a doubt the biggest fear. Really no different than any other parent.
I've talked to my kids, and you worry about these big life decisions that are inevitably coming at them,
yep.
Right? They're going to be offered drugs at some point. They're going to be offered alcohol in a bad situation. Yep. It's possible that, heaven forbid, they get someone pregnant super early. Some of these big things that might happen. I always tell my kids that drugs is the one thing they must stay away from, because I look back and I think I've had some friends that have gotten pregnant early in life and they figure it out. And I've had friends that have had alcohol problems, and that can be just as bad as drugs. But drugs always messes people up, inevitably, right? Do you have those conversations, or how do you have those conversations with your boys?
We have those conversations almost on a weekly. I am very open about it. We have those conversations all the time. I want them to know, once again, they can come and talk to me about it. I tell them this. I agree with you 100%, Corey. I tell them all the time that they should be thankful at this point in their life they don't have any of those addictions. So some people look at maybe the homeless on the street and what have you. I teach them that there's mental illness is a big deal in today's world. They understand that. I never knew what mental illness was at 11 and 13 years old. I mean, it just came to become prominent a decade ago. It was there, but it's not something people talked about, right? But I tell them that don't look down on those people. Just be thankful you don't have that addiction. Be thankful that strain doesn't run through your system, because we all know people that have had rough lives, and they're great people. They just can't snap out of it. So back to your question, we chat about it all the time. We sometimes joke about it, but they also know it's very serious how dad feels about any of those things. Don't go down the path. There's no reason. None of it leads to anything good. I mean, look at for me, I'm a little bit different. I've drank water now only for almost 11 years, never a sip of anything else. And they think that they don't even think it's weird anymore. My little guy pretty much drinks water with his dad, which I think is absolutely awesome, right?
I think it's awesome, but it is weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
And it's amazing.
And I love
11 years, legit. We're talking not even juice, correct? Just water 11 years.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Can't imagine drinking anything else. But I think that's a good sign that they see from me. I'm sure they go to their other parents, friends. And look, I don't think alcohol is bad, but I came from an alcoholic family. My father died on Father's Day morning of 1991. So I know what alcohol does to a family. And from that, I was a normal teenager. I drank alcohol. But I'll never forget the day that I found my father passed away on Father's Day morning of 1991. I told myself I'd never drink again, and I haven't. I would never even fathom putting alcohol in my body because I saw the way that he treated my mom, my sister, how it ruined our family. No matter what anybody says, there is absolutely, and this is religion, none of this has anything to do with it. It's just pure truth. It never does anything for your body. There's no good in doing any of those things. So I think hopefully they see that from their dad. They can choose to do what they want when they're older. But I think in that particular regard, I think it's probably a very good thing for them to see. They know dad goes on business trips. They've gone with me. They've sat at a table where people drink alcohol, and they see my dad doesn't care what anyone else drinks. He's going to have his cold glass of water. So hopefully that reflects, in a positive manner.
Rob, how are you keeping a good relationship with your ex-wife? I know that, like a lot of these guys, can I ask that question?
Oh, absolutely.
I know a lot of these guys that are listening that are going to be single dads are going to be like, well, that's great that he's got an ex-wife that is cooperative and co-parents and tries to keep a stable environment for the kids. That's great. I don't have that, right? Like, talk to those guys.
Oh boy. All right, guys, listen up. Here we go. I'm just kidding. Hey, look, that is that is a machine that ebbs and flows. So it is not always perfect. I'm very fortunate. They have an unbelievable mother. She's wonderful. She's amazing. We simply just didn't connect on a level of marriage and love and what have you. But it ebbs and flows. My personal goal is that if we ever have any issues, is to keep the children out of it. But they're also getting older. I mean, they're 11, 12, almost 13 years old, right? So they understand things. So it ebbs and flows. There's good times and there's rough times. The one thing that I've learned, which is so difficult for me, is let the little things go. They just don't matter. And that's difficult for all of us, but I think I've actually done a pretty good job of it the last year or so. There'd be comments made where I used to want to blow up, and now I'm like, whatever, it's water off my back. I think also finding the special someone for me makes it easier to do that as well. She has a boyfriend, which is great for the kids. Now they both see their mom and is happy, and they see their dad is happy. So there's nothing but positivity that comes from that. But don't think for a second, it wasn't always that way. The first 2 years were really rough. There's a lot of raw emotions in divorce, no matter what happens, right? And ours was very amicable and actually very simple. But when the times are good, I'll tell you what, it's good. It's good for the kids. So if you can have that relationship with your ex-wife or ex-husband, depending on who's listening here, it's so much better for the children. But to say it's easy, it's not easy. There's nothing easy about it. I don't know if that's the answer you wanted, but that's the reality of the whole thing.
We need the reality. So, Rob, if you were to look back and give yourself advice now, if you were to say, you're a new dad, you have a new 1-year-old boy, Kenyon's 1.
Yeah.
what would you tell yourself? What would you say to yourself? Would you say, do these things different, or don't forget to do these things? What would you say to yourself?
That's a great question. Time. I spent less time with Canyon that first year, only because I was young. I was in business. We all know, sitting at this table, which is a really hard, fine line. We're young, we're passionate, we want to do great things in our career, and those things take time. And you've got to feed your family. So now your first child, you've got your wife, you've got a newborn baby, you're nervous about that, and you're nervous about taking care of them. But time is everything. I think I caught on to that pretty quickly when I had Crew, our second one. So I don't feel like I missed too much. But that first year, I can remember I was working my tail off. I was a young real estate agent doing everything I could to save up and build a big dream that we all want through different times in our life. But time is everything. I mean, I could have this conversation with you guys and you could ask me one question and it's time. That's why I enjoy every second with the kids. I mean, every second. I watch them getting older. And I see them going, Halloween, Crew went to his friends, did a sleepover, which is fun, but I'm like, I told him, I said, I just lost 24 hours with you, joking and having fun. He's like, Dad, it was just 24 hours. And I kind of laughed because I'm like, to you, it's just 24 hours because they go really slow when you're 11 years old. But when you're 47 and you see your 13-year-old going to 14 driving, right? We talk about it all the time. So pumped to get his permit in another 2 years. But 24 hours to me as a single dad is absolutely, it's huge. And once again, we chuckle about it, but I'm serious about it. And he's like, Dad, let it go, in a fun way, of course. But
are there quotes or things that you consistently tell your kids because you want to drill it in?
Yeah, I only have one. And I tell them all the time when something comes up, I say, excuses don't make champions. It's totally true. It's life. It pretty much covers everything. Excuses don't make champions. I'll tell them, they'll complain about something. I'm like, you going to sit in the ground and cry because your brother knocked you down the basketball court? Or are you going to get up and be a champion? Because a champion doesn't mean winning. A champion means trying, to me, giving 110%. That's school. That's sports. That's your relationships, your friends. It's so much fun watching our children build those friendships. And this isn't an ism necessarily, but the one thing that I have drilled into them, and it made me so excited just the other day, at the first of school, I always say, boys, you grab onto that child that doesn't have any friends. I work in corporate relocation, so I work with hundreds of families a year that their kids get ripped out of their school system and, New York City, and they get transplanted into Phoenix, Arizona, or wherever we are relocating them to. That is stressful in a kid. My kids don't have to go through that, fortunately. Some days I wish they would, actually. I think there's a lot of value in that. But I teach them, go find the child that doesn't have a friend. Those are the ones that need it the most. And it was awesome. Crew came home the other day, and I said to him, boys, have you met any friends lately that need a little bit of help, that don't have maybe as many friends as you do? He's like, oh my gosh, Dad, you wouldn't believe this, but one of the kids just moved from so-and-so, and I saw him sitting in the corner about 2 weeks ago, and we eat with them every day now. We have lunch with them every day. And I'm like, that was like that's one of those parent moments where like, oh my gosh, my kids get it. The most important little things, they absolutely get it. So, and my other one chimed in and said, oh my gosh, Dad, I look for it every day. If there's someone that, is by themselves or having a rough day, I try to go over and be a friend to them. I'm like, yes. Like if I did anything as a parent right, that at the end of the day is the most important piece.
Your kids are well-mannered in my mind because I've spent some time with them.
Sure.
I remember Rob helped me buy a house many years ago.
Yeah.
And both Canyon and Crew came up and shook my hand, looked me in the eye and said, congratulations on your new home. And I thought to myself, are you kidding me? And we got to remember, these kids were way younger.
Yeah,
they were like
6 years old.
6 maybe, and 8 or something like that. And so manners is something that I see that you've taught your kids. Is how do you teach them that? Or is that, how do you go about that?
Telling them hundreds of thousands of times. No, I'm glad you brought that up. That is something that's just important to me. I've taught them please and thank you. And it's sad because I feel like a lot of parents have lost that. I mean, a lot of parents have lost that. I've taught them please and thank you, and their mom has as well, since literally the day that they are born. And now I'll say, hey, I'll chuck them. They're like, Dad, we're going to say it. And they say it now because they mean it, not because I told them. But this is back to your ism thing. One of those things that I teach, and I totally forgot I wasn't thinking about this, but I've told them that please and thank you will get them further in life than any college degree, anything that they do in life. Please and thank you is respect to someone else. It will get you so much further in life than anything else that you do, period.
I had a proud dad moment this last weekend in relation to that, like the please and the thank you. And then I've added to that, no, sir, and yes, sir. And yes, ma'am, absolutely. And no, ma'am.
Love it.
I have some family that lives down south, and I go down there and I visit, and I'm like, man, these kids down here are respectful. They treat, like, they don't care who you are. If you're older than they are, they say yes, sir, no, sir. And I loved that. So my wife and I did that, and we were working on a project this last weekend, and we had some like radio communications, and my boys actually had one of the radios, and they were asked to go do something that was very important. And the transmission that came back over the radio was, yes, sir.
Awesome.
And I had one of the other dads that was with me turn around, and he looked at me and he goes, that's awesome. And I didn't really think, two thoughts about it, but I loved that my boys did it without being asked. And two, that it's so rare now that kids say those simple things like, please, thank you, look people in the eye, shake their hand, give them a good handshake, introduce themselves.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things that I've loved about the Gentleman Project is my boys are pretty good at that. At this point, they're the same age, they're 13. And I love to see them like step up, square their shoulders up to somebody, look them in the eye, shake their hand, say, hi, nice to meet you. My name is John. What's your name? And to see that like whole thing come together for me is like a major dad payday.
It's exactly what it is. It's a payday.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel good, but they feel good. You can see when they square their shoulders up or when they say please or thank you. Not to go back to golf, because I know everyone doesn't play golf, but it is an amazing game. When I was little, we were a member of a club, and my kids were hanging out with 60-year-old people. Shoot, I was only 32 or 33 at the time. But they were blown away because my kids would go up and shake their hands. They were 5, 6, 7 years old. And these adults were like, oh my gosh, your child just came up and shook my hand and said, good morning. Those are exact paydays. And it's great for the moment, but those things carry them throughout all of life. They're going to know a difference when they're interviewing for a job and they walk in and they shake the hand of one of our children versus maybe someone else that, unfortunately didn't have that. And it's not all bad because there's a lot of dads out there that aren't there to support their children, which is unfortunate. But for those that are, it's a huge blessing in their life. There's no doubt about it.
I was thinking as we were talking that this is a podcast that I will definitely have my kids listen to. And for those that are listeners, it's not a bad idea. I did that. I drove down to St. George last week with my 2 oldest, and I had them listen to one of the podcasts. There's something magical about someone else teaching your kids.
Sure.
Because it's not their dad.
Right.
It's not their mom. Right. And so I encourage the listeners actually to listen to the podcasts and then decide, is this one I should listen to with my kids because someone else gets to teach them? And I think on the manner side, that's important. Rob, is there someone in your life that has influenced your kids that besides you and your wife, or are there people who you think, oh man, I wish that, I had more influence from an outside person?
That's absolutely. I think there's actually quite a few. Corey, you're actually one of them. My kids love coming down. Every time we come down to downtown Salt Lake, they're like, Dad, this is a big D building. That's where Corey works. I mean, they bring it up all the time. That means something to them. I think this beautiful building that we're in says success all over it. And my kids have recognized that. They'll see a big D sign driving down the freeway. They're like, Dad, that's where Corey works. Like, that's no joke. That happens all the time, which is really cool. So that says a lot about their connection with you. You know them fairly well, but we don't hang out every weekend. We have our own family. So I think that says a lot. Some other people would be a good friend of mine, Steve McGee. He knows the boys like you growing up, but doesn't see them all the time. But he's given them some experiences, whether it be fishing and different things like that, that their dad's not good at. But for someone like that to take time to take my boys fishing when they're in 4 and 5, they'll never forget that experience. We drive by the same pond going down Jordan now. That was 7, 8 years ago. Dad, do you remember the day we went fishing with Steve? So I'm very fortunate and blessed to have people like you that are my great friends in my lives that are absolutely amazing examples to my children, because they see them treating their kids or others that we're with at that given time the same way that I try to treat them.
Rob, I know you're involved in some charity work, especially something that we call the North Pole Express.
Yeah, baby.
I've been a little bit involved in with
Sure
you.
have.
Talk to us about that, and I'm sure that has to have an influence on your children.
Absolutely. So the North Pole Express is our 7th year going into it. Long story short, there's a thing called the Heber Creeper. It's a train up in Heber City, Utah. And if you've never done it, take your children up there, even if it's not during the holidays, during the summer. It's an awesome experience to go on an old steam engine train. Anyway, I was on it with my kids and thinking they do a thing called the Polar Express. They basically recreate the movie with hot chocolate and cookies and so on and so forth. And I was thinking to myself, and my kids were probably 4. Well, let's see, it was 7 years ago, so they were 4 years old, 3, 4 years old. And I remember looking at my wife at the time and saying, "Man, we need to get this experience to other children because this is unbelievable." However, it's not inexpensive. I want to say it's $20, $30. You're $120 for a family of 4. That's not inexpensive, and a lot of families, might not be able to afford that. So anyway, I looked at her and I said, "I'm going to rent this train for children that are a little less fortunate than us." And she kind of looked and chuckled. Well, I'll never forget coming back the next year. And I'm like, "Guess what?" She's like, "What?" I said, "I rented the entire train." She's like, "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" I said, "Remember the Polar Express? I rented the train." She's like, "What are you going to do with it?" I said, "We're going to put people that are less fortunate than our children are, and we're going to give them an experience of a lifetime." So anyway, what we do is we take children. Now it's evolved and changed a little bit. But the bottom line is we take a school in Salt Lake County and of children that are, for the most part, a little bit less fortunate than ours. And we give them any gift that they want, and we take them on the Polar Express. So we take buses. Corey, Big D Construction's been a huge advocate since the day we did it. They donate every single year and support us, along with other business owners in the community. But it's been the greatest experience for me and my boys that you could ever have. They look forward to it every year. Now things have evolved. We did it for 4 years on the train. The train holds 398 people. We started getting schools that are bigger. Last year was 565 kids, so we can't take the train anymore. So we said, well, what do we do? How do we create this magical experience? And what we decided to do is watch the Polar Express movie. And what we found is I was kind of a little bit sad because the whole experience of taking 400 kids up to Heber on a bus and giving them food along the way, and then they don't even know that they're getting their toys on the backside of this. They have no clue that there's literally 50 elves in a school decorating the gymnasium to give them the gift that they had requested back in September that they totally forgot about. But what I realized, we found that 70% of these kids had never gone to a movie theater before. So to them, going to the movies is unbelievable, which it is still for all of us. So now we do the same exact thing, except it's safer. The school system was a little concerned. We got lucky. We didn't end up with 7 or 8 buses stuck on Parley's Canyon, right, in a horrible snowstorm. But so now we do the movie theater, and it's been just as wonderful an experience. And we watched the movie, The Polar Express. So we rent the rights for a day to the movie. And we took 565 kids last year to the movies. And that's all. It is wonderful. I love it. It's my December 17th is roughly when we do it, my favorite day of the year. But my kids, the beauty of it is my kids, they've been involved every single year. We do a wrapping party the week before. They wrap the gifts. They're there on that day. They take off school. They're there helping out, handing out popcorn, whatever it is. So hopefully they're getting something from that they see. And I see little things that they do. My son, we were in San Diego a couple of years ago, and he's like, "Dad, I need $10. I'm like, what do you need $10 for? He's like, "I saw someone in the street. I think they need help." It was awesome. So he took $10. He went back by himself. It was probably 50 yards away, and he handed this sweet lady $10. It was awesome. So I think they see little things. But the biggest thing that ever came from that, my oldest was he was 5 years old, I will never forget the first time we'd done the Polar Express, nervous as could be, never put on anything like this. And my team is extraordinary at putting on these events. I have the idea, but it's nothing without the people that support us. There's so many people in this community that help make all the magic happen. But we were going to school, and he looked at me. I'll never forget this. And he said, Dad, I'm like, what? He's like, last night made my heart happy. And right there I knew that he understands what trying to do good is, right? Anyway, that's probably the best dad moment of my life. As a matter of fact, I don't think there will be anything to top that, because that little piece is what's helping them grow into who they are today.
So, Rob, you've had some challenges lately. You were talking to us in the studio about one of your sons. Tell us what's going on in your house right now.
Oh, man. It actually happened last night. My boys both have basketball tryouts this week, and my oldest son, Canyon, had his last night, and I bought him some basketball shoes, and, as we as kids, all exciting stuff, right? His mom came over, picked up the shoes, took him to practice because she has them right now. And I said, hey, good luck. I said, remember, just give it your all. Nothing else matters. Go 100%. Coaches don't care if you make baskets. They want to see kids that hustle. He's like, all right. He's totally excited, amped up. I'm pumped. I'm getting pumped right now for him because this is fun. It's an awesome time in life. I said, call me the second practice is over, or the tryouts are over. I want to know how you did. Oh, my gosh. He called me in tears about 9:15 last night. I'm like, what's wrong, buddy? He's like, Dad, I played horrible. I'm like, no, I'm sure you didn't play horrible. They wouldn't let parents come because of COVID. I wanted to go over and watch them, but they're doing the right thing and not allowing us to go watch. I said, buddy, how hard could it be? I said, did you try? Did you hustle? He's like, yeah, Dad, I gave it my all. I'm like, that's all that matters. He's like, but Dad, I played horrible. I'm like, what do you mean you played horrible? He couldn't even get it out. The kid was bawling. Like, that's the hard part about being a single dad, as well as I wasn't right there to hug him. I know his mom was, and that's awesome, but that's separate of what I'm telling you now. That's the hardest part about being a single dad right there. I just want to go give him a big hug. Anyway, that was a difficult pill to swallow. You try to pump him up, but we've all been there. It hurts. It's friends. It's, all of his friends in school. He might make the team, but if he doesn't, that's a hard pill to swallow as a child. So this morning, driving to the podcast, I called him at 7:15 in the morning, and I said, hey, how you doing this morning? Normally, he's like me. He's got energy. We laugh. We pump each other up. And it wasn't there. He's still as sad as he was when he went to sleep, and that just breaks your heart. And I told him that, hey, you don't know that you're not on the team. If you don't, it's not the end of the world. If you want to try out for another team, Dad will drive you to Salt Lake, and I'm sure Mom would. We live in Park City. We'll drive you down the canyon every day if you make another team. Don't stress about it. And I said, worst case, look, we don't all make every team that we try out for. That's just a reality of life. I said, worst case, what are we going to do? I said, we're going to try. If this is what you want, we're going to practice for the next year, and you're going to get on the team next year without a doubt. But you got to work at it. But anyway, my point of the story is parenting, and this podcast and me talking is all the good things, but the reality is life is also difficult, and we as parents need to be there for our kids, because my heart still hurts. I'm like, shoot, call me tonight. I got to know one way or the other. I'm like, oh, man, I hope he makes the team. But on the flip side, it's not a bad thing to not make the team. We adults know that. That's humbling experience when you think you're great at something and there's always someone out there that's better than you. That's just a fact of life. So anyway, I just wanted to share that piece because I think it's important.
I appreciate you sharing that, Rob. I think we all, especially those that are around our age, grew up with Michael Jordan.
Sure.
And we know the story about how he didn't make his
senior basketball team,
his high school basketball team, right? And that drove him to become the best high school player, and then eventually one of the best players. And he always actually, I don't know if you guys watched the Last Dance show, but he always had to have something
to drive him.
That was, he almost invented things, it seemed like, to help him to help drive him. So yes, as parents, we know that those things can be good. But man,
it's hard.
I'm on the edge of my seat when my little boy does anything just like yours. Yeah. Every tennis shot, every golf shot. You just want what's best for him. And sometimes the best is losing or not making the team. But man, it's hard as a parent to see that. So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Oh, no problem.
What awesome advice you've given us today, Rob.
Thanks.
Thank you for bringing your energy to the studio and giving us some unique perspectives from your point of view on how to be better dads.
Well, thanks. And I look forward to learning from others.
Well, we hope that
We hope that people enjoy the podcast, that they listen to it, that they're uplifted by it, and that they're motivated to be better dads. I think you've helped us with that today. Thanks again.
Thank you.
We wish you the best with your sprained ankle and your golf trip next week.
Thanks.
All right. I love that podcast, Corey. I loved how Rob talked about integrating his kids into his busy life and travel. There's some awesome stuff in there. Great stuff, Rob. Thank you very much.
Rob's so high energy. If you enjoyed this podcast, like and subscribe where you get your podcast. This is Corey Moore.
And I'm Kirk Chug. Thanks for joining us for the Gentleman Project podcast.